Hello, everyone. Tonight, our mini masterclass is on how to create a healthy school culture so that you can be a healthy school leaders. For those of you that I have not met or I do not know yet, my name is Shanavia Patterson. I am the founder of Principal Patterson Leadership Services, where we help school and district leaders transform their culture so that they can create a school of excellence. You may be wondering what qualifies me to speak on the topic of culture. One, I have been serving in the field of education for over 2 decades. I have served at every level of leadership. From the time you transition out of the classroom as an instructional coach, I've been a founding assistant principal. I've opened a school. I'm based in the Detroit area. I've opened a school as a founding assistant principal. I've served as a principal, a director of school, regional superintendent. I have done it all. And the line that goes through all of those leadership roles is how I was able to create a culture in the schools that no one had to recover from. I've served at every level of leadership. I've also was Michigan's Principal of the Year in 2017 for my work of turning around a poor performing school in just 3 years. The school that I inherited had a very toxic culture. And if you were on the previous live stream, I talked about the different levels of culture, whether it's toxic, tolerable, or top tier. And I inherited a school that was toxic. And I moved it from toxic to tolerable to top tier within 3 years, which is how I was able to become Michigan's Principal of the Year. But as a result of transforming the culture, the student academics just took off. I was able to retain teachers year after year after year and turning a school that was on the brink of closure into a state recognized school of excellence. So that is what qualifies me to talk to you all about. How do you create a healthy culture so that you can be a healthy leader? My passion is serving women that are in school leadership roles, school and district leadership roles, who are almost at that point of throwing in the towel. They're either at the point of throwing in the towel because they are overwhelmed and overworked, or they are so high performing and high achieving and they can't figure out how do they continue to elevate the excellence in their schools. You see, I either get one or the other end of the spectrum. But today we're going to talk about how do you create a healthy culture, the 5 benefits of having a healthy culture in your school, and 4 specific steps that you can take immediately. Okay, so when you think about culture, first and foremost, if you ask someone what is culture, you're going to get a ton of different responses. And that's okay because culture does mean something different to a lot of people. I believe culture is the invisible hand that drives performance in your school. It's the invisible hand that drives performance in your school. When I think about culture, I think about how do we want people to think, act, and interact in our school. And the behavior follows the thinking. So your culture already exists, whether you planned it or not. So you can either have an intentional culture or an accidental culture, but you cannot not have a culture. So you already have a culture. Whether it's the culture that you designed or inherited, you do have a culture. So it's either accidental or it's intentional. And I help school leaders create an intentional culture. So let's talk about the 5 benefits first, okay? So my goal is to help you create a healthy top tier culture. And there are 5 benefits to it. So let's talk about the 5 benefits of a healthy culture. I'm gonna slide my whiteboard over here, because we always got to give the why, right? You got to give the why in order for people to do the what. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the why is so important first. The 5 benefits of this healthy culture. So the very first one is that it relieves the pressure off of the leader. So when you show me a tired principal, you show me a principal that is overworked and overwhelmed, it can point directly back to the culture, some way, somehow. It takes the pressure off of the leader. When everyone is on the same page, the weight shifts from just you leading in a silo and carrying the weight of everyone to spreading it across the entire school. Everybody plays a part. Everyone plays a part. So that's the number one reason, is that it relieves the pressure off of the school leader. And a lot of our school leaders have an extensive amount of pressure on them right now, whether it's transforming culture, whether it's academic success, whether it's district demands coming down the pipeline, it's teacher turnover, it's student behavior, it's the leadership team, it's the parents. I hear it every single day. But when you can create this healthy culture, it relieves the pressure off of the leaders. The second reason, the second benefit of having a healthy culture is that it brings life back into the school. It brings life back into the school. When your team embrace the why, they are ready to deliver the what. When your team embrace the why, they are ready to deliver the what. So when you establish this healthy culture, it brings life back into your school. We have to optimize the culture that we want to create and give that gift of clarity to our team. How do we behave at our school? What do we believe at our school? It brings the life back. The third benefit, it creates this self-discipline and self-managed school. A self-disciplined and a self-managed. And I will also add self-motivated. When people have clarity on the culture, what's tolerable and what's not, they become self-regulating. A lot of things get taken care of by the team instead of everything being done by the leader. But you have to create that atmosphere in your school. It doesn't just happen. It's not automatic. This is the work that we have to do intentionally. The fourth benefit of a healthy school culture is that it shows up, I'm just going to leave it out. It shows up in the leader's absence. It shows up in the leader's absence. By focusing on creating a healthy culture, the leaders create a context that takes care of itself when they can't be there. Your culture is there whether you're there or not. And our goal is to make sure that everything runs as if you were there. But when you have this healthy culture, the benefit of it is that it manages in your absence, which is how you're able to take necessary time off if needed. That you're able to go to a conference that's in the middle of the school year. You're able to go on field trips with your own children, as you should. Because a healthy culture is going to manage in the leader's absence. And then the fifth reason is that it increases performance, engagement, and longevity. We wonder why we're turning over teachers left and right. And I'm not talking about the things that are completely out of our control. What we can't do in compensation, we can do in culture. I'm going to say that again. What we can't do in compensation, we can do in culture. There are some things that, of course, that are completely out of your control, but your culture is in your control. It definitely increases performance, engagement, and longevity. 5 benefits so far of why we should have healthy cultures in our school. Take the weight off the principal, take some of that pressure off so that our principals can sustain themselves, so that they can have longevity. I know it's all the talk about teacher retention and teacher turnover. We got to pay attention to our leaders that are turning over as well. It brings life back into the school when we embrace the why, they can deliver the what. Create a self-disciplined, self-motivating school. It shows up in your absence, and then it will increase performance and longevity. So if you were a part of the live stream I did last week, we talked about, is your culture toxic, tolerable, or top tier? We talked about those 3 different levels. And some of you expressed, like, signs and symptoms and things like that of how do you know if it's toxic? How do you know if it's at that tolerable state? How do you know when it's top tier? So you know when it's top tier because the staff is engaged, the students are motivated, they're engaged, you see less turnover, and you as the leader can actually lead and you're not just putting out fires every day. That's when you know. So when we're in that toxic environment, it's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of disengagement. It's stressful. And the leader is just being a firefighter every single day. Every single day. I ask some of the principals that I partner with, show me your calendar. When you show me your calendar, I can see what you're prioritizing. And if you aren't in classrooms as an instructional leader, if that's not part of your daily agenda, then I know there's something going on with the culture. Then you may be at a point where your culture isn't toxic, but it's tolerable, which means it's just good enough. And the principals that I partner with don't want just good enough. Those are the schools that are just buying time. If you know, you know. They're just buying time. And good enough they're okay with good enough. The status quo. If district office isn't complaining, we're not going to draw no attention to ourselves, right? That type of culture. That's tolerable. And I will tell you, tolerable won't get your students where they need to be. Having a tolerable culture won't retain the teachers that you need to change the school around. If your school is if you're trying to hit a state goal, if you're trying to hit a culture goal, an academic goal, a parental involvement goal, you won't get that with a tolerable culture because your people need more. And if they don't see you striving to do more and be more, neither will they. So that's that tolerable culture. And then of course the goal is to become top tier is when it's healthy. And this is when you know you have a top tier culture. There's momentum. Your team is coming to you with ideas and innovation every single week. What if we do this? Can we try that? Momentum. You're retaining teachers year after year. Teachers are holding on to their seats. That's the type of energy we want in our schools where they're like, I love it here. I want to be here. And if you really want to take a pulse of your culture, just ask your team, what is it like on the other side of my leadership? Trust me, they will tell you the truth. So these are some of the mistakes. I want to talk about some mistakes I see that leaders make, and then I'm going to give you the 4 steps to take control of your school culture. So some of the mistakes that I hear school leaders say or think is that it's just how people are. This is just how things have always been done here. And when I hear that, my response is, and you're there because? It's just how they are. They're just stuck in their ways. Get them unstuck. We have to get them unstuck in their ways. And then I always have to go back to the leaders and say, well, are you stuck in your ways? Respectfully? Respectfully, are you stuck in your ways? It's okay. Self-awareness is the first step. It's the first step. So, but yeah, that's the mistake that I hear often is that, oh, that's just how they are. And this is how they always do things and things like that. But I also see leaders that are working really hard to improve their student outcomes and solve day-to-day problems when they don't even realize that your culture is the root of all of that. All roles of leadership lead back to culture. All roles of leadership. So let's talk about the 4 steps, because I know you probably are like, okay, tell me, what do I do? How do I take control of my school culture? So there are 4 essential steps that you can do. Number 1, you design it. Your culture, it starts with you, and you have to design it. It doesn't just happen. You have to intentionally design the culture. And I want you to ask yourself this question. How do I want my team and my students and my parents, because they got to be part of the culture too, how do I want them to think, act, and interact in our school? You got to be able to answer that question because that's the root of the culture. And being intentional about defining the behaviors. What do those behaviors look like? How does your team think? How does your team act? How do they interact with one another? And sometimes when I visit schools, you know how people say they can tell the culture just from walking in the front office? That's true. It's very true. But what I'm looking for when I'm partnering with schools and principals, how do they think? How does your team act? How do they interact with one another? Like when you really do a deep culture audit, these are the things that we have to unpack. How are they thinking? When the clients that I coach, principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches, I pay a lot of attention to the way they think, because part of my job is to shift the way they think about their role as a leader so that they can act differently and then interact with their teams differently. It all goes back to behaviors. But when you are intentional about defining what do you want it to, how do you want them to think, act, and interact? That's how you design the culture. So that's step one, and that is the leader's responsibility. You can't bring in a team yet. Just this is the leader. This is your work that you have to do. Step two is deploy it. So now that you've designed it, you know what the values are, you know how you want them to think, act, and interact in your school. It's time to deploy it. Deploy it. It has to be actionable. Now it's like deploy. Now it's time to go and actually do it. And then you have evidence of it being done. You have to deploy it. You have to embed the desired behaviors into the daily actions of your staff. So this is the exercise that I do with a lot of my principal clients. This is what I do with them. I ask them for in their next team meeting, and I want you all to do this if you're serious about shifting your culture. Sit down at your next leadership team or admin team meeting and you tell them, fill in the blank. If we do nothing else, we will blank. If we do nothing else, we will blank. Or we do blank. But do that exercise with your leadership team. If we do nothing else, we will blank, and see what everyone comes up with. This is how you see how they think. And then you'll also see where the misalignment and where the gaps are. Like, ooh, if that's what we do, that ain't what I feel like we do. Then we got some work to do, right? So that's how you deploy it. Step three, now the leadership team has done their work. Now it's time to bring in everyone else, all the rest of the stakeholders. Whether that's the teachers, the students, the parents, all the other, it's time to promote it. So you design it first, then you deploy it. Next, it's time to promote it. It's constant reinforcement. And in order to promote it, like leadership is visual, your culture, it's an invisible hand, but it's still very visible. What are we doing to make it visible? How are you promoting the culture? How are you holding people accountable to the culture? How are you reinforcing the behaviors that are allowable? How are you reinforcing or giving feedback and making the adjustment to when you see things that are not in alignment to your school's culture? You have to promote it. So, and this can look a number of different ways. You all know I'm an advocate for having advisory teams. The principals that I partner with, they have principal advisory teams where they have advisors that are teachers. Because we can't see it all, we can't hear it all. We need them to be our advisors. And what that does, it builds this trust with them, which cleans up the relationship if there are some gaps there. But then they help to promote the culture. And then the last step is to protect it. You have to protect the culture because it's easy for bad habits to creep back in. It's easy for people to fall back into their bad patterns and habits. It's very easy, even for leaders. We get comfortable. You better believe once my school was running on autopilot, I got a little comfortable. And then it was time to get promoted. Don't ever get comfortable because it's time to get promoted. That's a whole nother live. But yeah, when things start, it's easy for people to fall back into their ways. But you have to protect the culture that you've designed and deployed. And now you promoting it. Now you have to protect it. And it's the leader's job to guard the culture that you've created. It's your job to do that. You have to do that. We hold people accountable, but there's a specific way to hold people accountable. And a lot of people think, and it's interesting, I was having this conversation with my husband. A lot of people think holding people accountable is like reprimands, write-ups, putting them on. That's not accountability. That's not accountability. Accountability is about change behavior. It's about changing the behavior. We have to address toxic behavior. We have to address it head on. We want to make sure our leadership teams are aligned. So we can't be afraid of pushback. If any of my clients are on here right now, what do I always say? Prepare for pushback. So when I'm coaching them through toxic behaviors or things that are happening in their school or things they need to address, even if it's just a conversation they need to have with someone, we practice by how we're going to prepare for the pushback. What you're going to say when they say this, because they are going to say that. You got to prepare for the pushback. But that's how you protect it. Another way to protect it, and this is what I did as well. I used a lot of my students, especially my middle school students, to protect my culture, my student culture. When new students would come in, they were the ones that was like, oh no, that ain't how we do that. We don't operate like that here. Same thing with teachers. When new teachers come in and they like coming from some other school that had a lot of trauma or toxic behaviors and they try to bring that to your school, you got to have a team of teachers that's ready to protect the culture that you've built, that you've designed, that you've deployed, that you've promoted, and now you're ready to protect it. They should be able to speak on your behalf. That's not how we operate here. I know this might not be what you're used to, but this is how we operate. This is the shared belief that we all have about how our school culture, this is how we think about our students. This is how we act with one another. This is how we interact with one another. I know this is a lot, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but you have to stay plugged in. You have to stay plugged in. You have to constantly get developed. As much as you all pour out, somebody got to pour back into you. Someone has to pour back into you. But I help school leaders do this every single day. And to help you, I can help you do the same. So my goal is to help us transform cultures, transform these environments, because creating a healthy school culture and making it a top tier place where teachers want to be doesn't happen automatically. You have to intentionally design it, and we can do that one leader at a time.